Before I started practicing Krishna consciousness, I really didn't have a conception of God as a person other than the guy on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel reaching his fingers out to Adam. And I didn't really think that was an accurate depiction of God as I became a little older and started to think about it more. I didn't really have a conception of God as a person, more a conception of God as an energy, as a force field, as a conscious entity, but with no particular form or identifiable characteristics. And for a while I had the idea that I could become that person or remember that I am that thing, whatever that was. I had it in my head actually that if I was just quiet enough and if I listened hard enough, then somehow or other I'd be able to hear the whole universe. I ended up hearing the boiler in my parents' basement, and I still, even though I learned every one of its little ticks and bings and booms, I still would jump every time it actually kicked in. You know, so this is how omniscient I became in the course of my silent meditation. When I first saw depictions of Krishna, what I saw was a little blue flute playing cowherd boy who danced with his girlfriends along the banks of a river in a forest. And I thought, yeah, this is God. Of course he is. Come on. So I just said, this is mythology, this is sentimentalism, you know, this is not God. God would not be like that. I don't know why God wouldn't be like that, but it just, you know. Now, my conception of God is that there's a little blue flute playing cowherd boy who dances with his girlfriends on the banks of a river in a forest. And there's actually a good reason for thinking that. Because if you're God, wouldn't you do that? You don't have to do anything else. Everything else is running effortlessly on your unlimited power that just keeps increasing. This is one of the things I really liked about Krishna consciousness, is that it gave me a conception of God that was inconceivable, and yet you could still understand why these would be the characteristics of God. And I never really heard a description of God or the personality of God that made sense that way, you know, that God would have a form, but it would be an unlimited form, even though form implies a boundary. That form would be unlimitedly beautiful and would just keep increasing in beauty no matter how beautiful. That God's power would just keep increasing. Everything is totally expanding, and yet would have to be a person of some kind, because otherwise that being would be lacking in some way. So if I'm a person, then God would also have to be a person, and if I am God in like some infinitesimal quantity, then the God in infinite quantity would also have to be a person unto himself. I learned that I can learn something about God by studying myself, just understanding that I'm in like, what I am in finite microcosm is what God is in infinite macrocosm. It's kind of psychedelic. Is another appealing aspect.